Everybody, welcome to this episode of Think Business Live. I'm looking forward to talking to Dan Rogers, sales leader and people developer, sales Sidekick, CEO and board member. And then I love on your LinkedIn profile, you have former burrito roller. So we'll talk about that too. But we were introduced by our mutual friend, Justin Breen, who is, the founder and CEO of Brepic Communications, and every time he introduces me to somebody, he introduces me with their Colby number and if they've taken their print number. And so I thought we could talk a little bit about personality tests today, and what they mean and how you use those. Oh, sorry about that. And how you use those in your business.
We'll give it a try.
Yeah.
I'm a student, a novice student, not a master. But we try them. I think they're great.
Yeah. And talk a little bit about, I know, the Colby, the Print, Strength Finder. I've taken all of those as well. Yeah. Which ones do you think are best for which pieces of, for salespeople, for managers, just kind of talk to where I don't think they're the end all be all. Yeah. I think they're an indicator, that kind of validate maybe a couple things, but how are you using them, and kind of where do you use them? And then how do you use the personality, how do you use it to help you make decisions?
Sure. So we, our journey started with just doing the disc.
Yeah.
So that was a great start. And I think, what I would suggest to folks is, if you don't use any personality test, pick one.
Yeah.
And at least try it. And so that was actually really quite helpful. And it was really helpful that we tested the entire company, and then we brought somebody in, and it just really improved just collaboration, because it was like, oh, the reason why we don't get along or the reason why we have such a hard time communicating is because of this. Yeah. So that would be my sort of just first high level, just start if you haven't already. So we started with the disc, and that was fine. And then we moved on to Strength Finders after that. And then after I joined, strategic.
What are you? What are you? What's your disc?
Gosh, I don't remember exactly. It was so long ago, but technically I'm a high I, which throws people. So I think I'm like a 91 I and like an 88 D. Yeah. And then S is somewhere like around 50. And then I'm offended. I have 5C on the compliance. I'm offended. I have so much of it. So
we probably have similar ones, because mine goes, D, very high I, very low S, and kind of like, below the line C. Yeah. But I think the disc is great. I think the disc is great for salespeople. I think it's a great, kind of review of like a good salesperson. Yeah.
Well, and I think it's also great for salespeople, or for people interacting with, customers, or sort of first-time interactions, to just, it's an oversimplification. It certainly doesn't honor the individual completely, but the tells are pretty obvious on the disc. Yeah. And then the modifications that you can make to be more effective are super effective. Yeah. So I think on the surface, disc is great. What I think, to get back just to the personalities in general, I think it's best to use them as just different facets to the diamond. Yeah, so, I think Colby is fantastic in really getting to see where people's, I don't think motivation is really the right word, but how they're going to strive. And I think that's interesting. And then I'm the only person in the company that's taken the print so far. And so I'm not nearly as up to speed on the print, although I did feel like it spoke to me. So we just haven't rolled it out to the rest of the folks yet.
Right. So the print I took per Justin, and I was in 8.4.
Yeah, I think I'm at 8.2. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're brothers from another mother, I think is what
Right,
that is.
right, yeah. Anyway, so we don't need to give too deeply into
Yep.
the personality test, but I do think I know you've taken a bunch of them, and Justin, and like as I said, when he introduces me to somebody, he says, "This person's a da 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 da,"
Yeah,
and he
yeah, yeah.
gives me all their numbers. He studies it a lot, so
And I don't he's a fast guy for sure. And I've only spent a little bit of I've never spent time with him in person. Our whole life has been virtual over COVID, but um I think he's got most of them memorized, which is sort of terrifying.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
so-
yeah. That's great. All right, so let's talk about you. Let's talk about you.
sure.
A business leader, in today's world, leading a business, and as we have all kind of worked through COVID, you have your business, which is Sales Sidekick, but you also have a business, point to point transportation. And
Mhm.
so, and I know your business evolved over COVID a bit. And I think a lot of people are feeling that way, right? That evolution of what their business turned into over the last year and a half and how it evolved. And now, as the world feels like it's starting to kind of get back to some level of normalcy, right? Where with how will it continue to evolve?
Yeah, so we Point to Point is a corporate event shipping company. So we had a hard stop in February of 2020, and sort of after stabilizing that and doing all the tough things that you have to do, I just reached out to my network of business owners, and it's somewhere between 600 and 1,000 people, and just the ones that I knew best. And I just really offered to be helpful because I didn't really have anything to do. And so pro bono consulting, and most of them got what they paid for sure, but we created some value a little bit along the way, and then conversations would evolve to some aspect of sales and marketing, and then they would ask me more and more questions just about how we had organized the company. And so Sales Sidekick, I joke about it, it's a COVID baby. It's technically a separate entity at this point, and we're trying to help folks sort of maybe reimagine their business in a different way, sort of organize it in a different way, so sales doesn't have to be done in a traditional sales way. So
Yeah. Yeah. And so what does that mean? Define that.
yeah, so what? And I promise I'll be short, but the backup or the to back up a second, I think it'll help. So we were successful at Point to Point, and I didn't think it was. I mean, I was proud of what we did, but I didn't think it was that different. When I started really talking to other business owners about it, and they know me as a sales guy because we were on the Inc. 5000 for 7 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
When we actually started talking about how we did it, they were like, "What? You didn't have salespeople?" I was like, "Yeah, no. If we do this right, people will cross the room to do work for you, or to ask you to do work." And
Yeah.
so what I didn't realize until I really started comparing notes with other folks is that we had organized our business. I think of business as a system, not as a business. So I apply the laws of systems thinking first, and then the sort of the principles of business second. And that gets you a wildly different product in parts of your business or your system.
Yeah. Good. I love that. So let's talk about
And
sales. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, so a good example, especially as it pertains to sales. So
Yeah.
I think most of us believe in hard work, and we say, look, if I make 100 phone calls, I'll get 10 meetings and I'll get one deal. And that's just become acceptable right now. As a systems guy, like that's horrific. Like forget the fact that I'm calling a bunch of people that don't want to talk to me and everything else. So a systems person thinks it's about the quality of the interaction, not the optimizing of the individual parts.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really focusing on interacting with the community that you serve at a much, much higher level than I think most people do. They're not thinking about it at a low, dishonorable level. They're just a couple magnitudes below making the magic happen.
Let's talk about sales though for a minute,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
think as a business coach, I
Mhm.
work with solopreneurs to Fortune 500, 100 companies,
Yep.
everything in between. But I always hear this from so many different people. Like, I don't want to sound salesy. And I
Yep.
say, but you're in sales, right? So
Yeah.
you don't have to sound salesy, but you have
Yeah.
to remember you are in sales. And so
Yep.
most people don't ask for the sale, right? And
Yep.
so asking for the sale is a very difficult thing. I mean, you point to studies, and the most warranties get sold at the self-checkout at Home Depot because the computer doesn't have an emotional connection to not ask.
Yeah.
And so talk about kind of like getting over this hump of to the salesperson who's in sales but doesn't want to sound salesy and is afraid to actually ask for business, which is
Yeah.
what sales is. I find myself training salespeople all over the world on this, getting them unstuck, teaching them what the ask is,
Yep.
and then infusing some courage and ways to ask that doesn't sound like what they would say is a used car salesperson.
Yep.
No disrespect, I think used car salespeople are have great sales skills, but that's what they say. So
it's a lot
talk
of push
on that track if you could.
Yeah. So again, it goes back to the systems thinking. So that's all straight push. Good, bad, right, or wrong. It's straight push.
Yeah.
Right? It's push. I'm a pull guy. So it's way different when they ask you to buy than it is you asking the question. And most people haven't done the work to create an environment where people they feel a desire to ask.
Right.
And you're framing a conversation at a wholly different level. So how I would say to get over the hump, and it's not traditional sales what we do at all, and so the traditional sales stuff doesn't map. But we start with listening for understanding, and not understanding about the stuff we're going to sell them, about them as a person and what they're trying to achieve. And then in the meeting, all we're trying to do is create value for them, whether we can get paid for it or not. And if I do that enough times in a community I serve, I should be able to figure out a way to frame a conversation where I'm guaranteed to create value for people, that eventually they're going to want to do business with me. And that's what our focus was. And every individual salesperson I've ever met that's done it honorably has done that. It's just that we don't design sales systems holistically, at that level. Yeah. We get caught up in phone calls and quotas. Yeah.
Yeah. So. No, I agree with you. You get when you give. I follow that train of thinking too, because the more value I can add through podcasts, through blogs, through videos, through tips, through I'm pumping out new content every single day.
Yeah.
And you can't stop. It's not like you can do it for 2 months, 3 months. Like once you get on that train, it doesn't stop. And so talk about, being value add, and not only being value add consistently, but being value add with not having, with keeping it simple, right? I think people don't need overly complicated value add. Sometimes they just need the simple.
Yeah. So I think value add is fantastic. I think of it as a table stake. And I think if you want to call it a salesperson that's having this conversation with the marketplace or the community, what I would say is if we're having a conversation, we're trying to focus on value creation. And addition is not creation, and creation is not addition in my book. Creation is like something that would have happened, only happens because we thought of it. Addition is we know it works, and this is just a hack. It's not that value add isn't good. Value creation is sort of making it up out of nothing. And there's a hack that I'm happy to pass on to everybody from a systems thinking standpoint. If we go back to the first tenet about it's all about the interactions, not about the optimizing of the parts. Companies are grossly disorganized, not because they're bad people, but because no one's paying attention to the management of the interaction of the parts. If you look for interactions that happen at high frequency and they're not managed, there's a massive chance that you can create value. And that when you create value at that level, it's super easy to get them to ask you to buy something else. Right? It's like, wow, holy smokes, this is wonderful. Can you do all this other stuff? And that's how they ask you for the order instead of you asking them for the sale.
Yeah, I love it. Tell everybody, of the two companies that you have, who your ideal clients are for each piece.
Yeah, so for point-to-point transportation, we're looking for corporate event marketers that value that by sort of systemizing and standardizing their work, that they can take those sort of sunken back of house expenses and channel them towards attendee experience. That's what we do. And those are usually corporations and production companies and all that. So that's a lot of fun. And then on the sales sidekick side, if you're about $1 million and you were wildly successful and business came to you like moth, from a flame, but now your sales have stalled out and you're not sure why, we have a lot of confidence that we have one of the major reasons why that happens, and then the fix to that major reason. Yeah, it's not the only reason, but it's usually it's the one that I would bet on. Yeah.
Good. I love it. All right, quick speed round. Dan, favorite book and why?
So Linchpin by Seth, because I think it's just the best across all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
There are no special snowflakes.
That's a good one.
It's just frozen it's frozen water.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And that applies to everything, by the way. Right. Like everything. Yeah.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
One piece of finish the sentence. One thing every person needs to do to get to their next level of sales is
develop their own restraints.
And one way they can become more aware of those restraints is
to accept the idea that their opinions don't matter outside their own head.
Okay, good. I love it. Define yourself in one word.
Passionate.
All right, I love it. And last question. Somebody who is in sales and wants to double their sales, what should they do?
Create value regardless, for fun and for free, no strings attached.
Yeah, I agree. I as a business coach, I'm always telling people, and I work from CEOs to salespeople and everything in between, right? They'll say, I'm doing a ton on social media. I'm doing a ton of I say, okay, great. Now double it, right? Yeah. Keep on pumping out more. I love your philosophy on value add. I think it's great. I appreciate you taking time to talk about the power of value add, the power of sales, the power of some personality tests as an indicator. I think they're also really good to be self-reflective as well if you take them, right? So it doesn't,
Absolutely.
You don't need a company to take them.
Yep.
With you. You can take them on your own and really learn a lot about yourself. And so I love it. Dan Rogers, my last question, which I know you talked about, it was in your bio. Talk about what being a burrito roller, taught you.
Yeah. So I was trying to get out of college, which I actually never graduated. But I took a part-time job rolling burritos, and 2.5 years later, we had opened 50 plus stores and a whole bunch of other things. But I still roll what some have called a perfect burrito.
All right, good.
Yeah.
All right, good. Well, Dan Rogers, I appreciate being on the show. Think community, if Dan can help you with business, with sales, personality tests, burrito rolling, whatever it is, feel free to reach out. I appreciate everybody's time. And thanks so much, Dan. I appreciate it. Thanks, Justin, for introducing us. And thanks, everybody. Talk to you. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks.